the pen in our hands, chosen vessels with a burning command, ink and purpose flowing from the throne. Every story written, heaven has known. From broken pages to destiny's plan, God put vision inside this pen.
Hey, Kingdom Scribes, welcome to another episode of the Author's Corner podcast with your favorite book publishing and writing coach, Tiffany Dillard. Today, we're going to do an author's highlight edition. No, this author is not with New Voice Books yet, but he is a very, very close family member that I just found out about just a couple of weekends ago. And he is, I would say, my second pastor, okay, but he is one that is going to share information about his new book, y'all, and go get it. It's on Amazon, called Sacred Roots, Bold Vision, Mentoring Young Black Preachers to Lead Legacy Churches with Integrity and Vision. So I want to introduce to you all, and some that may already see him all over TikTok, Pastor Dr. LaCedric Williams. Welcome to the Author's Corner podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to come on and just share with you, and not only with you as a sister in Christ, but now as a newfound family member.
Right. Y'all, y'all need to do the ancestry, because, my family found out that pastor is in the family, and we didn't know that, but we found it out, and now, hey, here we are. But Pastor, introduce yourself to the people. Let them know, about you, and far as you being a pastor, and now an author.
Definitely. And again, thank you, Tiffany, for having me on your podcast. I am Pastor LaCedric Williams. I have had the opportunity to pastor Greater Community First Baptist Church for a little over 12 years. And before that, I had the privilege of planning a church, and I pastored that for 12 years. Also have had the opportunity to be a life coach, a John Maxwell certified team member, a DISC assessment coach, mental health coach as well. And I work at United Parcel Services as well as a customer success director. Have the privilege of just writing this book, Sacred Roots, Bold Vision. God had really placed it on my heart to just share with young preachers of what it took to walk into a legacy church and be able to lead it with passion and with vision and with courage.
Okay, that's good. And look, Pastor, you have a lot of hats. I didn't know you had all of that underneath your belt.
Yes. You know, when you pastor churches and people, whether it's in the corporate world as I do, and whether it's in the church, you just have to be tapped into a lot of resources so that you continue to lead the way you need to lead.
Right. And that's good. And I'm really thankful that a lot of pastors are considering mental health now. And it's not just spiritual, but they're really, balancing out on both sides. And that's a great thing, because not everything you can lay on hands and, cast out demons. Sometimes it's some things, some wounds, and some things that are people needing to really address and deal with. So that's a good thing.
That's right. People are hurting, and people carry scars. We all do. And we need to be able to deal with them appropriately and not just always label them with some type of old time biblical title that we used to, and deal with it, the root cause of it, and encourage people to build from there. So it's important.
Yeah, that's good. So I know you said God placed this book on your heart. So what was it about this book in this season that you felt like, young preachers are really needing to, get that mentorship and that guidance when it comes to, taking on a church, especially a legacy church, because you have a lot of members in those churches that are like, well, Pastor so-and-so was doing it like this. And, they're trying to hold you to this standard and not letting you just be who God, created you to be. And I've seen that with my old church. My bishop in that church, he died, and the mantle was there for like 2 years, and then somebody came in, and it was just like, whoa, a shock to the church. But they were praying, but it was like when he came, it was like, whoa. So Why is this book important in this season?
Yeah, I think it's so important because the inspiration came because there's a lot of young pastors that are out there that are young preachers that are out there that have inspiration. And over the years, like I said, just 24 years of pastoring, a little over 36 years of just being a preacher, I've noticed something. I've noticed when pastors were called to churches, legacy churches, whether they were a century old or whether they were, decades old, pastors would go in with a grand vision and have the mind to want to do a whole lot of things in the church, but there was a gap. And that gap was understanding what used to be and understanding where you're going. And one of my favorite chapters in the book that I wrote, simply says that the church had a vision before you got there.
Right.
And that's what a lot of young pastors don't understand. And so how do you bring both those together in a cohesive way to where you can lead the church with vision and with passion and with change, but also being able to reflect on the shoulders of how that church was built and the vision of that church was built. And so we have so many seminaries out there that teaches us how to exegete the scripture. They teach us homiletics. They teach us Old Testament survey. They teach us all of those things, but there's nothing that really teaches or mentor young Black pastors in how to step into a church and lead it the way God wants them to lead it and not cause division, but keep the unity. Still can have change, but it's incremental change to where you get the people's buy-in and the vision is solid moving forward. So it inspired me to write that book. I was challenged myself pastoring a Greater Community First Baptist Church, although it was a church that grew from another church, the old Community First Baptist Church, and I faced some of those same challenges. Where do I find my voice? And I have all of these ideas and all of these things I want to do, and yet I have a people who have known church all their life and have been successful in going to church. How do I get them on board? And how do I build it into where I don't alienate their vision, their thoughts, their passions, their concerns, but yet still cast a new vision? And it made me sit back and really think and pray, God, how do I do this in a way that you would have me to do it and not in a way that I want to do it? Because it's not about me.
Right.
When pastors understand that, they'll find themselves being able to step into some of these churches and lead with passion and with courage and with strength.
That's good. And I hear a mentorship program.
Absolutely.
I'm hearing that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm hearing a mentorship program.
Well,
okay.
That's what this book is about. It's the first stage of this book is about, I'm hoping it becomes a written mentor so that young preachers can look at it and read it and understand. And then maybe they'll say, I need to call this pastor. I need to touch base with him and see if he doesn't mind mentoring or sharing some type of mentorship with us so that we can grow in the way that we need to grow. So you're exactly right.
Yeah, and I pray that happens because leaders need other leaders to help them. It's right. Like, we do as a congregation put our pastors and our bishops, on this platform. And it's like, y'all get on the platform, y'all get that mic and y'all know everything, but we don't think about that you're still growing and developing the same way you are teaching us to allow God to help us to grow and develop. So we don't give that space. So yeah, I pray that expands out so that pastors can know, like, well, I'm not up here just by myself and I can't. Because a lot of people that take on legacy churches, those pastors are not there anymore. They're gone.
That's right.
So they don't have anybody to, fall back on or to even go to. That's why one thing I loved to what I saw when, Bishop Jakes passed it down to his daughter and, son-in-law, but just for him to be there, to kind of be that person, to be like, hey, I know y'all walking in a different season, but I remember this, and here goes some pointers to kind of maybe help you on some
Yeah.
things. A lot of pastors don't have that, and so that mentorship is going to be very, very good.
Yeah, we're all still becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And when you understand that, and you can go back scripturally.
Mm-hmm.
Moses mentored Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Elijah mentored Elisha.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the New Testament. Paul mentored Timothy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a biblical standard to mentorship, and we have to get to the point, and I have to say it, especially in the Black church, we have to get to the point to where, as pastor, we stop thinking somebody's trying to take over.
Right.
See, I felt like I was preaching right there.
No, go ahead. Amen. I'm over here. Amen.
Stop acting like people are trying to take over and start mentoring people.
Right.
Any preacher I get at the church, I start pouring into them immediately. I want them to be successful.
Right.
I'm not going to always be here.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord can call me somewhere else, or he can call me home. And my job is to prepare them to be able to step up when they're called upon. And so that's very important.
Yes, that's good. That's good. So what makes leading a legacy church uniquely different from leading a newer congregation? Or I know you said you did a planting, so a planting church. Like, what's the difference between those different types?
You just think of it as from this standpoint. When you are a church planter, you have the privilege and the opportunity to setting the culture yourself. So that church is going to mimic you in many ways. You'll set the culture, you'll set the vision, the goal, and most people that'll come with you, that core group that'll come with you when you plant a church, they're already on board with what that culture is going to be. Right. But when you walk into a legacy church, the culture has already been developed. You can come in there with all the passion in the world and all the zeal in the world, but the culture has already been set. In other words, you can be a charismatic preacher, but if you show up in a traditional church, you don't have to tone some of that down. It's not saying that you don't have to be you, but you're going to have to adjust to the culture. And as you adjust to that culture, then you begin to build momentum as the people trust you. Right. There's the key word. John Maxwell says in his book, when he talks about becoming a leader with influence, he says there's three things people want to know about you, and this is true in the church. Number one, can they trust you? Do you care about them? And thirdly, do you have their best interest at hand? And until you can build that, you can't get them to jump on board with you. And so that's the difference between a legacy and a new plant, is that the culture is already set.
Okay. So then you have to be wise enough when you come in to not be so focused in on like, okay, I got to take over. I got to take off. I got to do all of these things, but to really allow yourselves to get time to get to know the people get to know you, and get to know the culture of things.
That's right.
So, and then it really helps you to kind of know where things may need to change, because there may be some things that you don't need to change, and some things that may be that you need to change. So that's good.
I say all the time that oftentimes you have to slow down and speed up. And when you do that, give you the example of when I stepped into this church, I slowed down. I took the time to get to understand and know the people. Listen to their stories, listen to their pains, pray with them, talk with them, call them, get to know who they are. So when it was time for me to start doing incremental, notice I keep saying incremental changes, it was bite-sized pieces. Because I built that trust. People understood that I cared for them, and that I had their best interests at hand, and I wasn't just some paid preacher to come in here and just take all the money and run.
Right.
But I was,
Right.
because the sincerity in the heart was there to truly lead God's people.
Right. And I can attest to that because y'all, when my parents went through their season of in sickness in their marriage, pastor was right there. And he was showing up. If he wasn't there physically, he was on the phone, he was calling aftercare. Because, you know, some people, they like, okay, let me go ahead and make my hospital appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go on. But it was even after the hospital, it was aftercare, encouraging scriptures, like, you know, all of the things. And when I say they went through a season, it was like one was in the hospital, one was out, one was in the hospital, one was out. Now they doing recovery. So you have your husband and wife in the hospital and out of the hospital at the same time. That's not, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
But he showed up to really, and they, you know, and I can say like they trust their pastor. You know, one thing about it, you can play with anybody, but don't play with pastor. Please don't play with pastor. And you may be like, well, Tiffany, how you know? Well, because I attend the church from time to time. I'm part of the old Greater Community First. I was a child going there in the older church. So when I came back home, that's when I met pastor. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, so it was a different type of, it was completely different from me experiencing the older church then versus now. Is completely different, you know, completely different. I can say that even though I was younger, 8 or 9, but it is a different atmosphere. It's a different, it feels more intimate and family oriented for me now.
Definitely. You know, I think that goes back to, again, as we talked about, the vision.
Mm-hmm.
As pastor, you know, the vision of that church now is a place to belong.
Right.
It's about a community atmosphere, a loving atmosphere, and we're not perfect, and we don't always get it right. But the focus is, how do we make sure that everyone that walks in that building have a sense of belonging?
Right.
A sense of belonging. I think that's so important. I don't want them to say, I go to Greater Community First Baptist Church. I want them to say, I belong.
Right.
First Baptist.
And that's a difference.
It is a difference.
That is a difference in saying you belong somewhere and you go. Because everybody will say they go to church and what church you go to, and they'll say it, and they probably ain't been in church since COVID.
Yeah.
You know? But when you belong somewhere, you feel a part of it. So when things move, you want to be a part of the movement.
That's right.
And you don't want to just be sitting on the sideline. So what is it? What is one thing that is important for emerging pastors to understand about like church history, culture, and like the spiritual foundation before they introduce their new vision to the congregation?
I think it's so important to realize where the church has been.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand where the church has been, then you don't know about the scars.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know about the pain. You won't know about the struggle that those people have gone through in their life to get to where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's personal to many people. People have spent their last dime for that church to be there. People have missed potential meals or whatever the case may be for that church to be there. And you to come in there and say, we're going to change everything that you've labored for,
right,
hundreds of years or 20, 30 years, is really a slap in the face.
Yeah.
So pastors really need to understand that I need to take a seat and listen to the stories. And there's no greater way to listen to those stories than to sit down with some of those mothers of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Just listen to them, and they when I became pastor at that church, they all call me little boy still. I'm 55 years old. I've been pastoring church for 12 years, but they still call me little boy. But that was okay, because I understood that they were my elder, and I sat there and I listened to their stories. I would talk on the phone with some of them. I would walk around church before service started and sit beside them and just sit down and talk with them, and they'll tell me some of the stories. And I took all that in, and it really, people will teach you if you listen.
Right.
People will teach you how to lead them.
Yeah.
If you just listen, a proverb says, wisdom cries out in the crowd. So if you just pay attention and listen to people, they will tell you how to lead them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we got to listen. And then how do you feel like, if when it comes to how will you approach casting vision to the congregation? So like how, if you were, mentoring a young preacher, a young pastor, how would you guide them into like casting vision once they got the history, once they understand the culture? Now, how do they need to cast this vision that, to let the congregation know, like, okay, I hear you, but I also see some things of improvement. And I ask this because when I saw the change and the shift in my old church, a lot of people kind of was fighting against the pastor because, the bishop, he was there. He's been there all of my life that I went to the church, but it was like everybody was so focused in on that one person. And even though he were like, hey, I need y'all to, like you said, I need you to prepare just in case I'm not here. I need to know that you're going to be still saved when I'm gone. And it was a lot of people that just could not take on the reign of this new pastor coming in, and the things that he was presenting were good. He brought Sunday school back. He wanted outreach to come back. It was a lot. He's a young pastor. I think he's like 34, 35. So he just came in with, a lot of vision to kind of get the church back to where it needs to be, which is in the community. But you have a lot of older saints who are like, we're not doing that no more. So how do you cast vision, still respecting the culture and the history, but also letting them know, okay, hey, we might need to shift. We got to pivot in this way.
Yeah, and it all starts with prayer. it all starts with prayer. And I think the part that is so important, it goes back to the listen, the learn, and the love.
Mm-hmm.
So you listen to these people, you learn about the culture, and you love on them. And as you do that, as you see their vision, you see what the vision was.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, when God calls you to pastor a church, especially a legacy church, that church already has a vision. So God has not called you to divide that church.
Right.
Has called you to unite that church or keep it united.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take what was, that vision, what was, and bring it together or merge it together with the vision God called you to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that different. Sometimes it may be worded different, but it's not that much different.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have the wisdom to be able to merge those together and push forward with change. So you don't just eliminate what used to be.
Right.
You take what they had and you merge it with what you have, and you walk slowly in baby steps. Watch this though. The most important thing that you have to be able to do is have clear communication. There's a quote that says there's many people communicating, but very few people connect.
That's good.
We have to be able to connect with the people. So how did I do it? I connected with them because I didn't come out with some long, drawn off vision statement. I just simply said at Greater Community First Baptist Church, we are a place to belong. A place to belong. I want to get up here and stand up here and read a whole paragraph of what we say we're going to do. We are a place to belong. And the people caught it.
Mm-hmm.
And they say it all the time. When people join the church, they say, truly, this is a place to belong.
Yeah.
I heard them say it. And, no church is perfect, but that is what caught on because the messaging was clear. People could catch it. People could repeat it. It was brief, it was repeatable, and it was time bound. It lets you know that this is something that we can continue to do into the future. And when you have clear messaging like that, then you can gain the people backing you behind that. That's where it starts.
That's good. That's good. So that kind of helps them transition to know, like, okay, yeah, we're moving forward, because of course you're moving forward, because like you gave the example with Moses and Joshua. And so he had to keep moving forward. He gave a vision to Moses. Moses had to go his round, and then Joshua had to pick it up. But like you said, God didn't change, because he told him, but you still need to meditate on these books of instructions day and night, and don't deviate from it.
That's right.
So the core and the foundation is the same.
That's
but
exactly.
Y'all may have a different enemy to fight. You may have different strategies. You may have different things that you need to do, but the whole goal is the same. So yeah,
that's right.
That's good.
And then what happens is, when you do it like that, you'll notice that it'll keep you from alienating the generations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the part that's most detrimental in pastoring a legacy church, and I deal with in the book, is that oftentimes we focus on this generation or that generation, and we alienate the other generations. And this is where you have to be very strategic yet tactical in your approach and how you lead a legacy church, because you cannot alienate any generation. You have to be able to preach a word, lead a church that taps into every generation. Now, you might have some lack in some areas that you have to tighten up, but you have to keep every generation in focus at all times. And if you do that, you'll get the buy-in from the people.
Yeah, that multi-generational reach, because you have the world that's kind of uplifting one and telling the other ones, no, y'all not needed anymore, and just pushing people aside. And sometimes you can just get lost and be like, well, okay, especially if you're a young pastor. They're like, well, he young, he gonna be with the millennials or the Gen X's, and it's like, no, I'm gonna reach for you too. Because you have something that your wisdom we need. That's so right. I can help them, because it may be some things that I can't see that you saw. Or you may be able to look at something a certain type of way that I'm not able to see in that manner, that's coming afar off, and I can be able to help you and draw it in. So yeah, that's good to kind of be in the center. Like, what I see is like the pastor in the center, and then all the generations are just circling around. So either way you turn, you can focus in on the even if you have to focus in on a generation for a time, but everybody is around you and have access to be able to get the word, hear it, pick up the vision and pick up whatever tools and resources they need and move forward.
And when you focus on not separating them, but keeping them locked together, arms tight. I often say, I shared this yesterday just in the sermon, is that we are fitly joined together. It's almost like a puzzle, that we're like puzzle pieces, and we're all fit together. And you didn't buy the puzzle because it had 1,000 pieces and it was scattered everywhere. You bought the puzzle because you like the picture on the box.
Right, exactly.
Product. And so we have to understand we all play a role, and we all have to fit together, and there's no big I's and little U's. And when we're all finished, this is the end result. This is where we're going. This is what God would have us to be. And it's that finished picture. And when everybody understands that they play a part, and they're not cast aside, they're not made to feel that they're no longer useful. Everyone feels like they can play a part. I don't care if you're 100 or if you're a newborn.
Right.
You play a part.
Right.
In what God is doing in this church. I think that's very important for every pastor in a legacy church to understand.
Yeah, that's good. So What are some effective ways pastors can build trust and bridge those generational differences? Because you have some pastors that are either young coming in. You even have those pastors that come up in a legacy church that the mothers may have said, "Hey, I remember when you was that little boy. So now I have to see you as my leader now." So how do what advice would you give to help bridge those gaps with those generations of all ages, so that way everybody can stay that, like you said, fitting together tightly like that puzzle?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that. I think we need to know trust isn't built with one great sermon.
Mm-hmm.
It's built through consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that there's systems to everything.
Okay.
And because there's systems to everything, you have to develop a consistent and continuous system that makes sure you're building trust. And so I've already shared it earlier. I talked about listen.
Mm-hmm.
We have to listen before we lead.
Mm-hmm.
Second part of that is we need to make sure we learn. We have to learn before we, want to make any changes. We got to learn. And then that third part is we have to love. I say we have to love people until they ask why. You love them regardless of what they may feel about you. You love them regardless of what they may think about you.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's not going to be on board with the new pastor, but you still have to love them.
Right.
And when you build a consistent system of doing that, what begins to happen is generational bridges begin to get built. And as it's built through the relationships. It's built through not making assumptions about anybody. It's about just building trust with each individual. And when you do that, this is an effective way of building that cohesiveness, that linking arms type of church that's needed, because trust has been built. And it starts with the pastor, and not just the pastor, but it also starts with the leadership and how we handle people, how we communicate with people, how we love on people, how we connect with people. All of that plays a part, and it has to be consistent across the board.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, like, what was it like? Because, like you said, you're coming in on a legacy church, but what was it like when you had to kind of really focus in on leadership? Because, you having to come in and maybe somebody's time to kind of retire, sit down, so somebody else can come up. So how do you navigate through those Saul and David moments when it comes to leadership?
Well, I think that goes back to messaging, because it's all about how you present it. I truly feel that when you encourage people, let me take a step back. When you go in and you see that there are changes that need to happen in leadership, you don't go in and just start stripping people of titles.
Right.
People have been in positions for years, and you just don't start stripping people of titles. No, what you do is you do what Jesus did. He developed leaders. When you develop leaders, part of developing a leader is, watch this, developing leaders to develop other leaders.
Right.
So you give them that power to understand that, hey, listen, you've been doing this for this long. Who are you mentoring? Who are you developing? So that when you're no longer here, when the Lord calls you home, who will take over? Who have you poured into? Those are the things that we have to do. It starts with teaching leaders to develop other leaders. And when you do that, they can pass the torch, because you haven't stripped them of your title. Matter of fact, you've given them more responsibility, because now they have the responsibility of mentoring someone else. And I think that's so important. And we have that in our church in many ways. I've watched some of the older deacons and some of the older sisters in the church or mothers in the church develop others. One day take their position and watch this, and they end up taking their positions and they're still there and they're watching on. I think of Sister Coleman. I would just say Sister Evelyn Coleman, wonderful school teacher, and I watched over the years how she mentored and developed many of the young women in our church, and now she's still a Sunday school teacher, but she sits back more, and I'm watching all of these other young women step up who learned from her.
Wow, that's great.
And that's powerful.
Yeah, it is.
It never stripped her of a title, but what it did was it empowered her to mentor and grow and develop other people. And now they're mentoring and growing other people, and it's reciprocating and reciprocating. That's what the church is all about. And that's where it begins. That didn't start with me. It was already there. I just moved forward with it because it was already established.
Right. And see, that's like you said, that's knowing that culture, to kind of picking up on that person, to know that, okay, hey, she's one that can teach to teach to teach. You know what I'm saying? So everybody can keep moving forward. Because some people get into a place, like you said, oh, I've been here for this church since it was founded. And I'm the Sunday school teacher all the time. But just to be able to know that, like, hey, I can be able to be used in this area now a little bit more, now that I can sow seed and then watch those seeds grow. So that's good.
It really does. But I'll tell you this, though. It starts, I'll bring it back. It starts with that pastor. It starts with the pastor. I can't tell anyone else to do anything that I wouldn't do.
Right.
So if I'm not being that example, if I'm not pouring into those ministers, if I'm not mentoring those ministers, if I'm not teaching those ministers, if I'm not giving them or setting them up for success when it's their turn, then how can I expect the church to do it?
Right.
If I'm walking around as a jealous pastor, or I'm walking around as if I'm the only one that can do everything, and I'm not delegating, then how can I set the church up for success? So it starts with pastor.
Yeah, that's good. So pastors, y'all hear that? You do not have to do it all by yourself now. You can go on vacation and enjoy your family and let deacon, minister, somebody else stand up on that platform and give that word.
That's right.
Everybody, can give the word. Everybody doesn't have to. And it's good because that y'all have a weight.
Yeah.
My bonus dad, he's a pastor. So I can, might as well say I'm a PK, but I see that on the back end on that side. And I see how heavy that can be, when something going on, your phone ringing at 12 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, because they trying to get hold of pastor. I didn't understand it then because I was like, y'all don't have nobody else y'all can call. They were like, I need to speak to your dad. You're dead now. And I'm like, it's 1 o'clock. Do you not know what time it is? But I can understand now, it's a weight. But when you do have a pastor that cares and that sees you and acknowledges you, that's the person that you need in your corner when you don't have anybody else to go to. That's and right. You want, like you said, want to be able to have that open dialogue with your congregation to know, like, hey, I can do it. Deacon so-and-so can do it. Minister so-and-so can do it. Like, everybody that's under me is me, in different, avenues in different ways. And they can always help you to continue to belong.
That's right. That's right.
So why is mentorship essential in emerging pastors and church leaders? Like, why is that important in the church today?
It's so important because, number one, the culture that we live in. People are learning more and more about faith online.
Yeah.
All of it is accurate.
Right.
And most of it A lot of it is very deceptive.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's important for us as pastors to mentor preachers, mentor other people in the church, so that the legacy will live on, that the church would live on. It's important. The church is under attack in many ways, and
Right.
and the black church is under attack in many ways. And
Mm-hmm.
the sad thing about it is that we have some pastors that are out there that may be in it for a career,
Mm-hmm.
and some that's in it for a calling. And so when you can find those that you can help develop that sees this as a true calling, it's important that we mentor them so that they can go and pastor a church one day and continue to carry that banner for many years to come. We're not always going to be here.
Right.
Pastor Williams is not always going to be here. So who's the next pastor of Greater Community First Baptist Church? And after that pastor, who's the next pastor after him? And
Right.
and it may be one of the youth that's sitting in the church right now, like I was at Community First Baptist Church. Never would have thought that I would end up pastoring Greater Community First Baptist Church. I was one of those young kids that was sitting in the audience when Pastor Gerald was up there preaching, saying, I want to one day pastor like that.
Wow.
Here I am today.
Now you said something that I can't let you skip over. You said pastor, you have two types of pastors. One that's trying to have a career and one that is operating in their calling. Tell us the two so people can recognize it, because we are in this false, this true, this era. So let's be clear on the career pastors and the calling pastors.
You trying to make this podcast go viral, aren't you?
Look, we're trying to get this book out.
Well, I will be straight.
Okay, that's how we want it.
There are hirelings,
Mm-hmm.
and there are truly called. There are people who have taken this as a get-rich-quick scheme, and there are people who have a passion to love and lead God's people.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are out there because they can sound good, they can sing good, but they may not even be surrendered to the Lord. The truth is that there are wolves in sheep clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be concerned about that. There's a difference between understanding that I am called to pastor this church, and it doesn't matter how much you pay me or what the people give or what I'm driving or where I live. I am called to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because of that, because I proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ, yes, in many ways, the church supports you.
Right.
But if your bottom line goal is to get rich quick or to make a lot of money or go buy your Cadillac or go get you a bunch of acreage and a mansion on a hill when you got 5 members in your church, it's a problem.
Not 5, Pastor.
I've just called you.
Oh, not the 5 and the million and the 40 acres. 5 members? Oh, okay. They must be some 5 millionaires in your church.
I know it. But there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
My career is working at UPS as a customer success director. My calling and my passion is pastoring Greater Community First Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference.
All right. So I hear you have those that give information and you have those that are called for transformation.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, you just dropped the mic right there. That's a matter of fact, that's a sermon title.
All right. Oh, look, go on. But look, let me know when you preach it, Pastor. So I
credit. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can go on, come on over there and listen to that word. But yeah, so that's good because, and our reason why I wanted to highlight that because with your book, people are like, okay, I can get this and get. If you're one of those career pastors, it's like, okay, I can get this book and get more information. But where you're coming from as an author is like, no, I don't want you to just get information. I want you to understand your position on that platform, off that platform, to know that you were called for transformation. So then now you got to take yourself back to God and say, am I really supposed to be here?
That's
Because
right.
it can feel good. It can be a good idea because who doesn't want to, hey, they saying they want to choose me, select me as the pastor. But are you really the vehicle and the vessel to bring forth transformation? Because why pastor a church and everybody's still the same?
That's right.
Ain't nobody changing. There's
Mm-hmm.
no growth in the church,
Mm-hmm.
and because I know when my daddy he was doing the church picnic that y'all have every year.
Yeah.
And he was asking me, like, I was helping him shop, and he was like, Monique, you think this will be enough? And I said, no, Daddy, because y'all church done grew since last year. So you might want to double that. I was like, because you're not going to have enough if you just base it off last year's numbers.
That's right.
But for me not to be an active member and to go to church every Sunday to see the growth, that speaks highly of the leadership, because it's like I can see the transformation and I'm not at your church every Sunday. So I know, what I'm saying, that we can't just be, they can't just be for information. They have to understand that they're called to transform, and not them, but what God puts in them to do that.
That's right. It's so important because um, I say this to the church. I fear God
Mm-hmm.
in a reverent way. Um, I don't want to be out of position.
Right.
I don't want to be doing something because I think that it's a good career.
Right.
I want to be in His full will.
Yeah.
So, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, if this is what you want me to, if this is my calling, then I want to pour in it with my life,
Right.
and I don't want to just be some well-known pastor or some
Mm-hmm.
popular pastor or someone that he's a household name. That doesn't matter to me.
Right.
Matters to me is, am I operating in my God-given calling?
Right.
And how do you know that? It's because you realize that it's not about money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about popularity. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about what you can get. It's what you can give.
Right.
You operate like that, there is a difference between operating in a career and operating in your calling.
Yeah, because that impact matters. That
That's
impact matters. So what gives you hope about the future of the Black church and the next generation of Black pastors?
you know, people are starting to come back to church.
Yeah, I see that.
Barna did a survey not too long ago, and it talked about how young people, especially, are starting,
Mm-hmm.
and that excites me because that gives the older members. Here we go with the generations.
Right.
That gives the older members an opportunity to wrap these younger people that are coming back to church or coming to church for the first time, wrap them around their arms and begin to pour into them and begin to mentor them.
Right.
The church across the board, no matter what denomination, the attendance was falling off. And then when COVID hit, it even caused an even worse exodus with everyone just going virtual.
Right.
And it took a while for people to come back to church. So when I look out at what's happening now, and it gives me hope because we have a newfound opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much going on in the world, and people are searching and seeking for meaning, belonging, and hope. And it's not time for the church to get ready. We should already be ready.
Right.
For those that are coming. And I shared this with the church already. As they are coming, what do we already have in place to embrace them? That's
right.
What gives me hope, is that people are coming and searching, and there is a word for them, and there is a place for them. And if we stretch open our arms wide and we accept them, how they are, who they are, where they came from, no matter what their background is, and love on them, the church will continue to grow and will continue to spread the gospel. That's the hope that I have, and that's the encouragement and excitement that I have, because the harvest is plentiful out there right now.
Right. And especially the young generation, like they're looking for truth.
Oh,
you know, you have a generation that they're in AI, you know, so they can pinpoint AI now. You know, they have a lot of things that are coming off as true, but it's false.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of things I think about, like when I was younger and then to now, I'm like, dang, you know, it's a lot of things that have changed. And I know with like my sons, you know, they're in that young age, and one thing they say, they be like, we just looking for something real, like real.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, and I even asked them, I said, what is real to y'all? Because, you know, I'm 43, so my generation, you know, it was the fake it till you make it. You know what I'm saying? Before then, you know, but what is real, you know? And they're like, no, we need something real. Like we can see and pick up now stuff is fake. So it's just really like, they're like, well, we just going with the flow, you know, just however it is. But to hear that statistic and that incline, because it was said over them that they would be the generation that would not return.
That's right.
So I'm thankful to God that he's turning that word around and said, no, I know what you said, but I know what I'm going to do.
That's exactly right.
Because just as the old can teach the young can teach the old, you know, because Joshua and Caleb had to fight together.
That's right. That's right.
Caleb was in his 80s when they crossed over. So they had to fight together.
That's right.
And still be able to conquer and receive and possess what God said belonged to them at the same time.
That's right.
So it's amazing. I just love how the word just continued. Like God just like, my word just keeps unfolding and unfolding and doing what I've always, you know, wanted it to do. And it doesn't stop. So that's good.
You said something that that just really stuck out, is the fact that they just want real.
Yeah.
Now, and I can tell you, and that's important for all of us, especially pastors and leaders of churches, lay members of churches, to understand, is that these young people, they read fake right away.
Yeah.
And so you can't play like you love them. And you can't play like they're and act like, you know, and fake like they're welcome. You better make sure you for real about it, because they'll pick it out real fast.
Yeah, I got my test when, you know, I got to teach some of your young people at Vacation Bible School, and I was like, ooh. I was like, well, God, if I needed to be tested on to speaking and teaching, you put me in here. And, you know, and it wasn't a lot of them. It's probably like 4 or 5 of them. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And I was like, you know what? We just going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come in here and let's go through this whole book and reading it. That's making you feel like you in school. Let's have a conversation. What's going on in your life? What's happening? And then we going interweave this into it.
That's
right. And my dad was like, the kids was asking about you. And I was like, oh, then I must have did a good job if they was asking. Because, you know, kid, they find us somebody else to kind of teach us. But they looking for real. They want somebody to relate to them and hear them. Because I know when I was younger, that was the main thing. I'm like, we want to be seen. We want to be heard. No, we don't have bills. We don't have a mortgage. And we're not walking around here trying to feed a whole house full of people. But our world still matters.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And how do you do it? How do you do it without being condescending?
Right.
I think that's the part that impressed me to write this book even more, is that I was that young preacher. I was that young pastor at one time, and I felt like every older pastor that spoke to me was always condescending toward me. And so it never was a matter of mentorship. And I had a few pastors that I could trust, but it was a lot of I just would turn off because it was condescending. So if I felt like that as a young pastor, even a young preacher, then I can imagine how many young people feel like that when older members go and talk to them, and instead of you trying to have a conversation with them, you talking at them.
Right.
And there's a difference.
It is, because I don't like to be talked at, and I'm 43, and I'm like, oh, right. Do you not think I can't understand? And then I'll just tune you out, and then it just sounds like you Charlie Brown's mom, or I can't. I don't hear nothing you saying, and I'm just a nod like, but I'm not hearing nothing you're saying, because I'm like, okay, because now I feel like you've underestimated me. Yeah. So it's like, well, I'm not going to even kind of tell you or give you a sneak peek of who I am, but okay, let you just go ahead and then go on about my business, not to be disrespectful. So that's good.
It's even more than that. Not only did they underestimate you, but they judged you.
Yeah.
And that's the big part of why many people have left the church, and thank God they're starting to come back, is because in some way, shape, form, or fashion, they felt judged.
Yeah, when it should be the other way around, because I've always looked at the church as a safe haven. Mm-hmm. Just like how in the Bible they had those certain cities that murderers and things they can run to, when they did something wrong, and they was nothing that could happen to them. They couldn't be judged. Yeah. And that's how I've always looked at the church, because I'm like, if you can't go to the church, then where can you go? That's right. Where if the church is not safe, then nowhere is safe for me. Like, there's no place that it will be safe if I can't go to the church and be amongst God's people. So that's very important. So what would you say to the young pastor or preacher who feels called to lead but is intimidated by the weight of the assignment? Because the legacy church, like I said earlier, it's weight. So if you could speak to someone right now, how would you encourage them to not focus in on that weight, but like you said, walk in your calling and your passion?
Yeah, I would tell them that, God has already prepared you for such a time as this. Mm-hmm. And that has to be resolved in your mind. Mm-hmm. That has to be bathed in prayer, and you have to know what God has called you to. And once you know that God has prepared you for the task at hand, you need to remain humble, remain sensitive to the Spirit of God, and He'll lead you every step of the way. Mm-hmm. Whenever you start making decisions on your own, then I can guarantee you they will fail. But if you stay sensitive, that's the one thing I can encourage every young pastor. You walk into a legacy church, know you were built for it.
Right.
God has already prepared you for it. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what everyone has said. You are the person God has chosen for this task. And if He chose you for it, you are already prepared. Now walk in it.
Walk it out.
That's it.
That's a good thing. So tell the audience how they can purchase your book, how they can connect with you on TikTok, because he is on TikTok, you guys, Facebook. How can they now on TikTok? He has his sermons on there. So if you're needing to connect, some of us are not able to go to churches within our cities, and we need, thankful for COVID, that virtual space opened up. But how can they connect with you, and then where can they purchase your book?
Sure. You can find me on TikTok under Inspiring Moments. You can find us on Facebook under Greater Community First Baptist Church. Our Facebook page, our whole services are there online. You can also catch me or find my book on Amazon, on Google, on Apple. It's also at Barnes and Noble. And so, matter of fact, if you just Google Sacred Roots Bold Vision, you'll find all type of links that'll come up for that. And you can certainly go to my personal website, which is Global Leadership LLC.com. And you can find my book there, but you can also connect with me there as well.
All right. Now, if you guys are, well, we're going to do this. If you need a church home and you don't have one in your area, then connect with Greater Community First Baptist Church. Pastor's already giving you that information. If you are a young pastor or you are feeling the tug on your heart to pastor a church, whether it be a legacy church, maybe it be a new ministry that you have to start, get the book. This is a tool and resource for you to be able to use to help you. God did not place this on pastor's heart for you to just sit and say, God, what am I supposed to do? The resources is on Amazon. Go get it. And everything as far as the links will be in the show notes. So if you need to come back to this episode and, need to find, you can't find it on your own, I will put the link in the show notes so that way you can have it accessible to you to go to where you need to be to purchase the book. And then, give some feedback, because authors do need feedback. They love feedback to know how their book is affecting the world, because we're kingdom scribes, and this is not just for New Voice Books. We are kingdom scribes, and so we're trying to change the world one book at a time. So thank you, Pastor, for coming on the Authors Corner podcast, for sharing with us, for preaching to us, for teaching to us, for educating us, encouraging us. Because yes, it may just be for, you may say, well, this book is just for pastors. It can be for any form of leadership. Even if you're not on the platform, God is using you to minister. Get the book, because we all need to know how to properly lead God's sheep. So we're not those career ministers or those wolves in sheep's clothing, that we are trusted shepherds leading God's people. Okay. So I love you guys, and go get Pastor's book. I'm going to keep saying it. Go get the book. Okay. It is a necessary read. Like, any pastor that puts something out, I'm just going to say this because this keeps jumping out of my mind. Any pastor, bishop, apostle, anybody that is putting out literature to give to you guys, to help you to move forward in your life, get it. Especially the trusted ones. Because we don't want to not have this information. What happens when God silences their voice and they can't speak to us? They've given us something already for us to be able to use. So don't just, sit on it. And I'm not saying this because, yes, I told y'all he's my newfound family member. No, I am pushing the books behind Kingdom Scribes because God gave us these books for a reason. And it's not just for us to sell books and make money, even though that's part of it, but it's not the main goal. The goal is for your life to be changed. All right. So be tuning in for this episode to drop, because it will be dropping next Monday. So make sure you have your notifications on, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you go and follow Pastor so that way you can get those inspiration moments. And then if you need the full thing, go on Facebook and follow the church's website so that way you can tune into the virtual services. Y'all services air at 10:30, right, Pastor?
10:30 on the dot.
All right, so 10:30, and they have Bible study. So if you tune in to Bible study, get your midweek service too, because I know sometimes I need it. Well, no, I need it all the time, because to help me through the week. So thank you guys for listening in, and I love you as always. Be blessed.
Writing